Hello, dreamers. Welcome back to the show. If this is your first time watching or listening, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Livin The Dream 506. Share it. Tell your friends about it. All that good stuff. Everything helps. So thanks, at the very least, for just being here. On today's episode, I am once again joined by my good friend Ryan Kinney in the guest co-host seat to interview a rock legend that we've both been a huge fan of for over 2 decades. He is the lead singer and guitar player for the band Monster Magnet, whose new album, A Better Dystopia, is out now. Please give it up for the one and only Dave Wyndorf.
So what's up?
Not much, man. You good to just get right into it?
Oh yeah.
How long we got you for?
As long as you want.
Beautiful.
Until it gets horrible.
So 5 minutes.
No, but it's always interested me doing a podcast. I mean, that's what you guys always have to think of. It's like, how much do we need? How much do you really like? When is the whole podcast thing everybody gonna wake up and go, a lot of this stuff really sucks. We should really start editing.
Yeah, definitely.
But then you never know when it's going to get,
That's the thing. Like if you go long form, those later hours when you start to loosen up and almost forget you're in an interview style, that's when people start talking about the good shit.
When I was a kid, long form radio was big. It went away. But when I was like 12, the late 60s, early 70s, long form radio was like podcast is now. Like from 9 o'clock at night to all night, people would just go and they would forget where they were and they would go off. So if you go 2 hours into it, some guy would go in with the biggest pitch in the world and then wind up going completely off his shit. And it was awesome. It was worth listening to. So, but now that everybody can do it, it's just like, where are you going to sift through? And we really have to wait for the guy to, like, after 2 hours of the interview, open up his shirt and show the suicide bomb, and go, I'm going now to the Empire State Building. And like, holy shit, we got one. And horrible history is made.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Joe Rogan got so big. Like they go and then an hour in, once all the promotion.
Rogan's a smart guy. He's a total player in that respect of sitting there and going, yeah. He knows how to get the Cooke out of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a joint or a glass of whiskey, and it might take an hour, but that's when the good stuff.
Yeah, that's old school shit too. Yeah, absolutely. Don't deny him anything. Like, give him a drink for the love of God. Like, straight off. Like, go ahead, man. You're among friends.
Yeah.
And that's like, I wish we could do this in person, because that's when you get the better conversation in person anyway. Like, you can feed off people a little better rather than over Zoom.
Absolutely. Although that has its own intricacies too, which could be better and sometimes worse. There's a definite new thing going on here now, which never before in history, where you have people who start to gravitate into a personal situation, yet they're not physically present. So I don't know what that kind of mindset would go, but I know if they're drinking, they'll go a lot farther than if they were in person.
Absolutely.
Because there's no one like breathing that, it's like there's almost like a disconnect from the person they're talking to, and they're more connected to themselves. Like, basically, meltdowns are us. I mean, how many Zoom meltdowns have we seen? How many? I mean, how many? The whole world is just basically waiting for the chance to go. Something. I have something to say also. Blah! And then,
Well, right before you got on, we were talking about the same thing and how like there's been CEOs and politicians getting caught giving her a little tug like at the end of Zoom meetings, forgetting to shut her down. And I mean, this is hilarious the way things are playing.
Yeah, they're
out.
just not making the connection between what's real and what's not real. And I love how everybody thinks they can handle it. I got it, man. I got my cock here. I got my girl here. I got my work here. And it's like, dude, you never, that's always a bad idea.
So how do you like the in-person versus internet interview style?
I like them both. I mean, if I'm really busy, obviously to get the job done, it's easier to do it this way. But,
yeah, for sure.
But in-person interviews are always better.
Yeah.
There used to be a lot of time put out for that. In the old times, in the old days, they used to actually like set up a huge meeting room and fly journalists to places for bands to like see them. So, at no expense to the journalists, they get like a free flight, maybe a free hotel. And if you were at a major label, and they go and you just go in a conference room all day or some hotel lobby or a bar and just hang out all day. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Same with PR tours, like going city to city and promoting things on different radio stations and stuff. And now that can all be done in one shot, one day.
Right. I did that a lot too. A lot of airplanes. And I remember going to Europe a bunch of times. There was always like 21 cities in 17 days, airplanes almost every day. But it was cool because you actually, not only do you meet people and talk to them, but you actually wind up with them at one point. So I used to know the journalists, we used to go out and like talk and stuff. And then they go, I got to be, I really like you, but I think your album sucks. So I'm going to have to give you a bad review. And I'm like, do what you have to do.
So are you like, what's going to happen now with the new album? And like, are you going to be touring it and are you going to be doing any PR stuff like that? Like you just mentioned?
No, nobody's going to fly me around. Here, have a diseased, here, take this diseased person, this viral carrier. Come on in. No, I think they fly people like the only people they would fly around anymore would be like Pink Floyd or somebody or Taylor Swift or somebody would generate that much numbers.
Right.
But I think all the rest of rock is just really down. I mean, rock is, it's 15% of the world, Mark. 15%.
Is that an actual number?
That's a number.
Wow.
Yeah. So just pop music is just taking over, I guess.
Yeah, it's the kids have decided. The kids aren't all right. This is their thing. Rock's never going to die, but I mean, it's a weird position when you look at an audience and at any rock band and the average person is over 25. That's a bad sign, dude.
Yeah.
It's definitely shifted for rock. Like touring has become the main income stream for a rock and roll band, whereas like pop musicians and the younger generation can make a living on social media.
Yeah, and I suppose rock could too if they really, really tried, but I don't know what the expenditure of energy is. I mean, the kids on social media and with pop and stuff like that, they spend all their energy, probably more energy than they make on creating the music, on managing their social media.
Yeah, 100% on marketing, way more than the actual.
And it's like, I don't know where that leaves any room. Doesn't leave that room for them to really tour like rock bands do. Maybe they'll do like 11 cities or something, but rock bands do 36, and 66 cities. That's like an old business model. It's like, if you go around, you get word of mouth from people, actual people who see it, who are into the live experience as well as the record, and that's how you build. It seems like modern, like especially internet sensations or pop sensations, really are about just social media. Getting the blast on TikTok or Instagram and trying to get whatever where you're going to get from that. I don't know how that could last, but I guess it's fun if you're a kid. I mean, it's no fun for me. It just seems like, kind of bullshit, but what are you going to say? Like these people have spoken,
To me, I think it's less about the music and it's more about the person. Like with rock and roll is definitely more about the music, whereas these pop stars and TikTok stars and social media stars, it's about the personality.
And their personal brand. Like
brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's like, it's how much what does music represent to them in their life? In the rock model, which was really set the rock model that we know was set like in the late 60s and early 70s. It was kind of put in place. Music is this thing. It's part image, part music. The balances will shift depending on if you got a Jim Morrison in the band, the image is going to be that big because it's Jim fucking Morrison. But it doesn't mean that you can't be a Pink Floyd with no personality and still be big. It's the music was number one. And I think the music really was used by kids to represent themselves. Like, look, there's a lot of shit. I know how I feel, but I can't really explain myself. Let me put on Animals by Pink Floyd. That'll let you know how I feel. Or I really feel like fucking, AC/DC. That's the way I feel. I can't explain it, but here's the music. Nowadays, the kids explain themselves. Like the music is only for them to put in a list of ancillary things. Like, oh yeah, I got my jams over here. I got my favorite shows. I got my favorite songs, blah, blah, blah. But as far as representing myself, I'll do that all fucking day. It's almost like there's so much talk that there's really not enough room for any kind of intricate music in their lives. I mean, that takes too much time, I think,
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Like, can you think of an example of a rock band in the last 5 or 10 years that has the same presence or appeal as like I say an AC/DC or a Pink Floyd? Like, it doesn't seem to happen anymore for rock music.
The system won't allow for it. You know what I mean? It's like the system is different. So it's a systemic thing, meaning the system is to get them in quick, keep up a constant barrage, social media barrage. And if you can manipulate the numbers, a lot of these sensations that we think are big on TikTok and stuff really aren't that big. They seem like they're big because it's a wildfire of attention and stuff. But if you actually had to put asses in the seats, if you toured that around the world, it wouldn't get past Cleveland.
Yeah, the type of people that make it big aren't the type of people that are going to be hanging on for a ride or anything. They're a fly by night sort of thing.
Right, which means, and why hasn't there been any rock bands to, kind of do it all? You can't keep waiting for somebody to do it all. Wow, they got social media and they're filling up stadiums, living the dream, all that kind of shit. I don't think that you can get that many people to agree on any one thing for more than a couple months, unless it's got heritage behind it. Like, yeah, people will go see the Rolling Stones because the Rolling Stones are one of the most promoted bands and they have 60 years of people to drag from. And even, it goes up to about the 90s, before music went digital, before Napster, before Apple Music, before Spotify and all that stuff. Bands were still in the model of reaching a lot of people in a little slower way, sticking in and being able to go on classic radio to be, I don't know, deified, I guess we call it, deified, and say, this is a classic rock band. They don't make classic rock bands anymore because the system doesn't have time to promote them. Like, it's just done. It's done. Like, you can't get any further. You have to be a classic rock band from that age, or we won't let you in. And a bunch of bands have tried it. Mastodon has tried it. Muse has tried it. They got the big managers. They got Metallica's managers. They did all the right things, but you get Grammys but you don't see it. It's not like, holy shit, the concert's coming to town. But so many things have changed. Like, concert doesn't mean as much before because you can see it on YouTube months ahead. You know?
Yeah, true.
When you have people when you have your fans choosing your set list for you, and you have all this interaction between the fans even before the record comes out and stuff, the mystery is gone. You know, it's just like it's almost automatically expected that. So it's not as much fun, you know. And how could anything be as much fun as you getting your brain ready for something that you really haven't seen yet? And then you kind of explode when you go to the show. Now it's like, yeah, I saw 3 shows. I don't like the set list. It's like, what are you kidding me? You don't get to choose that shit, but they do.
Yeah. So when you guys are touring, are you different set list every night, essentially?
No. Nope. Usually for each tour, I'll do a different set list. And because it just basically gets better the more we play it, you know? Yeah. We'll switch it up here and there, but lately I've been trying to do it for different things. One time I switched songs around a lot, and the people were actually pissed off at it. They were like, yeah, they were just like, you know, I thought I was going to get this. And it opens up the internet opens up a whole can of worms where it's like, I thought I was going to get this. I saw this. I was like, dude, you know, we're just a band, you know. So I've noticed that there's a couple songs that you just don't not play.
Right.
Because they'll kill you. You know, if you had a hit song at one time, like we had a hit song called Space Lord, like a million years ago. And they're still like, where the fuck is it? Right. Okay. But I'll do album-centric tours. That's how we switch it up.
Yeah, I've noticed that you guys have done a few tours that have been like replaying. I think you were about to do one with Power Trip, weren't you? Before all this happened, and then
we did half of it. We did the first half in Europe, and then Corona got everybody.
And then you did a Dopes to Infinity one too, didn't you?
Yeah.
2 years back. Yeah, that would have been crazy to see.
And we're doing a Spine of God show this New Year's in Asbury, and if that goes well, people dig that. We can take that around too. But it's a good way to like unpack all the albums.
Yeah,
I got like 11 albums now. I never could imagine myself having 11 albums. It's like a lot. What are you going to do for the set? I honestly don't know. We got 11 albums. It's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, have you got a chance to tour the new album?
No, and I'm hoping to. At least in Europe, we'll get to do that. I know I'm going to Europe next year, and there'll be a final way for me to tour that album in North America as well. You know.
Yeah.
I don't see any. The songs are great on it, so I don't think people are gonna complain. You know, because it was a coverage record or whatever.
It's a wicked album. Yeah, I had a chance to go through it when it came out, and I haven't stopped listening to it since. Thanks.
We got together not too long ago, just like after it was all done, and played a bunch of that stuff live in the studio. I was like, this is great. It sounds great live. It's like insane, you know. And I get to sing all that 60s style, and it's really cool. Like it feels great.
Yeah. So what is new right now? Like what's going on with you? What's the plan? Are things getting back to normal for you? Like how's that?
Yeah, it's slowly bored out of my mind. You know, I'm not used to not playing. You know, we should have played like 3 times so far in the last like 7 months or 8. Sitting around trying to make up the plan for next year, really. You know, so now there's like 2 tours planned and maybe a third. One of them will be in North America, 2 of them in Europe, and then just get back out there. I mean, like you say, like the way you make your money these days is on the road. But not only that, it's like there's not much reason. It's weird. I mean, doing projects online or doing projects for just online music is cool. And I can imagine being a kid and doing whatever, you know, to get it. But to be in an actual band with people that are working towards a certain vibe that's going to go out live, it's like, unless you're playing it live, there's really no reason for you to be a band.
Mm-hmm.
You know, It's like, what are you? Oh, we're a conceptual art thing that says band on it, and we put it on Bandcamp, and like, but are you? It's like, what do you do? Yeah, we get together like once a month, and it's like, no, you're not a band. You're a band if you play like 60 nights in a row. Then you're a band. Then it's like,
and if you have a live energy, that's when you're a band in my books.
yeah. I mean, you look like you're happy to be there. Yeah. You're bringing something that can't be replicated on the studio albums.
Exactly. An experience above just the recording.
That was always the thing. I loved it because all I did was go to concerts when I was a kid, and I love those albums to death. And then you go and you see the band and they brought something else to it because it's different. It sounds different. There's different kind of energy. And most of the time it was, if not better, just so different that I couldn't imagine myself missing that experience.
Exactly.
I was like, I don't know this band unless I see them live. I know the album and I love it, but and some bands were better live, some bands were worse, but it was always worth going. Yeah, I mean, concerts were the shit, man. That's all I did when I was a kid, was go to a million concerts.
Yeah, it's said all the time, but live is the way to see a band. That is the band. Studio can give you an idea of what you're going to get, but
yeah,
the live performance is what the song is. You can tweak anything on the computer. And I guess to bookend what we started with, that's what those TikTokers are doing in social media. Like it's clips of music or dancing that is edited and perfected, and it has nothing to, they've tried taking these TikTok stars on tour and they put them in arenas and it just doesn't translate, and it's not popular.
They probably don't even know what they're doing, the poor bastards. They're like, what am I doing here? No, I would guess, to be nice to those guys, like the art is in the editing.
Exactly.
It's like a reality TV show, like reality TV show. The art in a reality TV show is the editing.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have one of those reality TV shows on stage because nothing would happen because it wasn't edited.
Exactly.
So it just doesn't work live. It's not live. Like the TikTok stuff, that is a construct that involves music and images and editing.
Exactly.
But a live band is just a live band. And it's like they either got it or they don't. It's so interesting because I love it because so much is thrown to the gods in that way. Like, what happened? How come it wasn't good? I don't know. What is it? The audience's fault? Is it our fault? Was it the sound system's fault? And conversely, that was the greatest thing I ever saw. But was it really? Maybe I was just in a good mood. Maybe the hall sounded good. Maybe the night was weird. All those variables, physical, human, that variables. Oh, I saw a chick at this concert. It was great. And the band was fucking great. Now, maybe if you didn't see the chick, the show wouldn't have been that good. But I love leaving it up to
perception.
Variables.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've seen my favorite band before and come out of it saying that was one of the worst shows I've ever seen, and talk to the person beside me saying it was the best show they've ever seen.
Yeah. So now we're talking about perception, individual perception. And most of that, I mean, the band controls it as much as they can to represent themselves, but in no way is it as nearly contrived as this TikTok stuff, which is minutely edited. I mean, that's more like we're talking, they're using TV advertising tricks. That's what TikTok is. They use TV advertising methods.
Yeah, almost marketing, really.
Marketing, right? Marketing methods to do this stuff, which is cool. But
what specifically do you mean? Like, what kind of tricks are they using?
Well, I mean, if you can edit stuff, if you can move an image here and there and make it sync up with something, if you can sync that 1 second to the next, like, I mean, you could do it in Pro Tools and music too, but if you have images to work with as well, you're presenting not just music, but you're presenting a performance that's nothing was left to chance. I mean, that's not spontaneous. That's
right.
The opposite of spontaneous.
Right.
When bands, even the most choreographed bands, are like, there's something left to spontaneity. And even choreographed bands, they got their shit. They get a lot of shit.
Yep.
If you have one of those, like, giant Swedish metal bands like Sabaton or something, it's like, it's like, well, it's more like a Broadway show than it is like a real rock concert.
Right.
But I guess if you have a big giant tank on stage, everybody loves the tank.
Well, that leads me to a question I wanted to ask you about, like your first band when you were younger, Shrapnel.
Yeah.
So I read that it was kind of like a militaristic concept band. So was there some choreographed stuff, and like what was a live show looking like for Shrapnel? And
We had it was so fucking retarded. Pardon me. Retarded in the best sense. We got the idea from a manager. We were in a hard rock band called Heart Attack, was just playing like old, just like we were playing music like UFO would have played in 1974. And kind of MC5, kind of UFO, Stooges, all this mixture of hard rock that hit us when we were kids, because that's my age group. So it was like kind of Stooges, kind of UFO, and long hair, but not hippie, and leather jackets and stuff before punk rock. And punk rock happened, and we met this guy, Legs McNeil, who's this famous writer from New York City. He had founded a thing with John Holstrom called Punk Magazine. And it was the beginning of punk rock. And he had an idea. It's like, I'll be your manager. I think he wanted to be like Malcolm McLaren to the Sex Pistols. So he said, we'll call the band Shrapnel, and we'll be the ultimate punk band because we'll be like American military, which was really, really, just the most anti New York scene thing you could do at the time. It was just so god awful. It wasn't that long since Vietnam. So, but we would be like little kids because we looked like little kids. And it was all derived from war comic books and TV shows and a celebration of junk culture and idiot, that kind of idiot 60s war culture that made kids grow up and go to Vietnam and go, well, I guess I'm World War II, huh? And then the next thing you know, they get blown away. So it was very offensive, and because it was so innocent. We had a stage, a giant American flag, sandbags, like sandbags around the drums, army uniforms, except we were like little kids. So the army helmet would come down like over your over your eyes, plastic machine guns, and come out there and go, let's go, like an old World War II movie. And it was just so absolutely ridiculous.
That's amazing.
And we're like, yeah. And then we wrote songs called like Cro-Magnon Man, where this guy, I was thinking Alice Cooper at the time. Like, yeah, what would Alice Cooper do? He'd have a character who turns into this like nuclear waste guy, kind of a Hulk, turns into the Incredible Hulk because of some reason or another. Too much Americanism. And I had this big giant bomb on stage and put this plastic mask on and run around with a giant bomb and attack the audience with the bomb. Run around the audience with a plastic machine gun. Man, if we were to do that now, I'd be shot in 2 seconds,
That's
but
awesome.
back then, it just seemed like, for some reason, it seemed like a cool thing to do. It was not cool, but it seemed cool.
I think it's great. I like the idea of like the concept concert.
Yeah. Oh, it was fun because we put it together. I mean, it was like vaudeville, basically, It's not like we had any money. So we made our own, sandbags and fill them up with like, the styrofoam peanuts. We'd sometimes put barbed wire around the stage to make it, and put dirt on the stage to make it look like a battleground. But all in small places like punk rock. We got our start at CBGB's. So this was not metal at all. This is not a metal thing. We were thinking in terms of out-punking the punks in some bizarre way. But then punk rock was different back then. It was more like if you had a weird idea, a conceptual idea, that's where you did it in punk rock. I mean, that's how the Ramones happened. The Ramones were really like a conceptual art band.
Because even like a lot of the noise bands and art rock bands like from New York, like early Sonic Youth and that stuff, like was born out of the punk hardcore scene too, right? So
yes.
So you kind of had that performance stage art going on too.
They always had some sort of arty angle. I mean, New York was it was still really, really under the spell of Warhol back then. Even then, even in the 80s, I mean, New York is such a weird place. Everything had some art angle to it. And of course, our thing had no art in it. And our stuff was like the art of comic books, you know. And at one point, I think we went out and I bought like McDonald's cheeseburgers to force the American experience, the American junk experience. It was me in an army uniform, like throwing cheeseburgers at people, like eat the American food, and like all kinds of weird comments. And and wrote songs that were I didn't even write those songs. I didn't write the song at the beginning, but we eventually calmed down. Like after Legs left, it got less radical. And then finally lost the uniforms altogether, and then stood around going, what the fuck am I doing here? I think it's time to stop. But CBGB's in New York was fun. It was good stuff.
No doubt.
Did any of that cross over into Monster Magnet?
I think maybe the only way, with meaning that I always had some sort of concept in my brain, because it was so much fun doing that. That when I thought of Monster Magnet, it was definitely from a place of love. It wasn't concept first, but I think in the back of my brain was like, what would be my favorite band for me to see? Like, and what would they look like? And I think from Shrapnel kind of taught me that a look, even how minimal, is still a look. You know, it never escaped me. Like during the grunge thing, like we came out during grunge, Monster Magnet, and the grunge started with like, oh, we don't have any look, but I knew that it was a look. You know, it was like, oh, no look is if that's your stick. You know,
Yeah,
everybody's
no
got a
look is
stick,
a
no
look.
matter what they say. It's like, oh, so your stick is no stick, huh? And so ours was, I just want to look like a bunch of 70s dirtbags. You know, the way the kids look when I was 12, you know. When I was 12 in like 1969, people had a look, and it was very much like grunge, except no flannel. It was just like white beaters, you know, just like mean hippie guys from the gas station, hippies that weren't nice. It was like, why is that hippie mean? You know, fuck you. And they listened to Blue Cheer records and Grand Funk, and did a lot of speed. And I thought that was like the ultimate. It's like, wow, that'd be a cool thing for a band, just a bunch of dirtbags.
So Dave, in the early days, like for Monster Magnet coming out of New Jersey and out of the East, like were you guys aware of like the desert scene and the stuff going on in California sort of at the same time? And like,
not at first, for the first couple of years, I wasn't aware of the desert scene because I don't think it was going on. I think it happened right at the same time we were doing our stuff. The desert scene happened at the same time. So I remember playing CBGBs early on and meeting Brant Bjork from Caius was coming to the show, and he gave me the first Caius record, which wasn't quite the desert rock that it turned into. You know, it was different, a little bit different at first. And I was just going off of, Butthole Surfers, Mudhoney. That's who was psyching me up. And then I found out about the desert thing and was like, oh, holy shit. So, and then Fu Manchu came out, and I was like, oh, I think there's something going on here.
Yeah, because I mean, you guys definitely sound different, but they're definitely along the same vein. So I was always kind of curious of that, if you guys were sort of hip to each other, or if it was just parallels.
We were hip. It just took a little. I think when all those bands were Magnet and Caius and Fu Manchu, and I think when those guys were all doing their thing, I don't think we were very aware of each other, but we very soon were like, hey, that guy looks cool, like across the street, like I think he's got it, As soon as you saw, it was weird to see, to see a pair of bell bottoms and a really long-haired guy in the suburbs in 1990.
Yeah.
Or before there, 1989. It was, so you didn't see that many. Like long hair was kind of gone, And when it started to come back, it was like, oh, you could see, oh, that's my brother over there, long hair guy. But it wasn't metal, and I think that was the big thing. It was big, we're all young and like, this is not metal. Don't get us confused, and we didn't want to be confused with Guns N' Roses or hair metal or anything like that.
Yeah.
It seemed very important to make the distinction.
Well, it was because the people that want to kind of associate with you and wave that flag are trying to disassociate from that thing, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
So
Isn't that amazing how when you're a kid, how important it is? Like, don't get, like, whatever you do, don't confuse anybody. They have to know, you know?
yeah, this is
When you're young, it's important to, it's important for everyone to know who you hate as much as who you like.
definitely.
I hate this. I'm not like that anymore, but I used to be like, no, you know?
I mean, that kind of describes everything that's going on in the world right now.
Fuck.
It's almost more important to let people know what you hate than it is what you represent.
It's no way to go.
Yeah.
Nothing good will come from this. I've never seen the world act more, you know, I mean, the world was more insane when I was a kid. I got to say, it was more nuts in 60, 68, 69, 70. It was more dangerous because there was stuff blowing up everywhere. I mean, there was and if you look at the history of, just look up like how many bombings in the United States in 1969, you'll see like 30, you know. Things were blowing up, things were burning, people were getting shot all over the place. But at the end of it, you could see that light at the end of the tunnel. It looked like everyone was going, all right, everyone's trying to understand each other's viewpoint or not, or whatever. But there seemed to be an end to it. Like maybe if you get rid of the Vietnam War and maybe if we get through this, things will settle down. Now it just seems like people are just fighting because they like to fight. I mean, even the idealism doesn't make sense to me. At least back then it did, you know, bring down the old structure. But it's like this whole thing now on the left and the right is everyone's talking big ideals. It doesn't really make much sense to normal people, I don't think. It's like, no, you don't want to burn everything down. No, that's a stupid idea. And the other thing is, well, then we'll just, I mean, I don't even know what the right has to say. They have nothing to say except hate. It's almost like they're on this weird death trip. We'll just say no till everything goes to hell. I don't get that. But all I know is that this should be the smartest and coolest time in history. What the fuck happened? We got the best machines we ever had. Look at these things.
Right.
This is like my dream when I was a little kid. When I was a kid, all I could dream about, like someday there'll be fucking computers and it'll be fucking badass, you know? I'm back there with like one rotary phone, you know, one TV in the house with 3 channels going, someday it's going to be great. And then we get all this stuff. And what does everybody do? Fight.
Yeah.
Well, it's the behind the screen thing that you were talking about with how people can, when they feel alone, it's safer. You're behind a screen, you're protected. There's no consequence.
Disturbing. Disturbing to see the power shift too, because now a lot of people who never had power before in their life because they couldn't physically represent themselves, so they just had to shut up. I mean, now they do have power because of the internet. So, I mean, I'm sure if we took half the trolls out in the world and put them on the street, I don't think they'd be ready to fight. You know what I mean? It's not like these guys could hold their own in even a debate.
No.
Not even a civilized debate. I'm not even talking about fighting. I doubt if they could even handle themselves in a civilized debate. And at least in the old days, you had to do that. You had to write something. You had to write something to represent yourself physically with your words and crowd thing. Now it just seems like if you have the right button to push to piss people off, you win, and that's a shame. They shouldn't be rewarded for. There's no talent in getting. I can wind somebody up pretty good myself. I'm sure you guys could too, but do you? It's like. No,
there's no point. There's no
game.
Because
you're a human being. That's why. And these people are acting like, oh, well, there's new rules for being a human. It's like, I think the same rules apply.
And it's getting weird too. Like hearing a lot about the U.S. curriculum starting to implement critical race theory into the schools, and all they're doing is teaching kids to hate the country they live in and hate themselves and hate their families and their ancestry.
Yeah.
I can't see anything good coming out of that.
Well, I wouldn't worry too much about that. That's not going to go down. I mean, that's another thing that people are making a big deal. That's never going to go down. If you're really people are looking for conspiracy theories, something like, there's things that people talk about that piss people off, and that's everything now. So this thing like the critical race theory, which I've read and I've seen the whole thing, and it's like, that shit's never going to fly. Not, no one's going to accept it. No one's going to accept it. The only thing America's ever accepted is the bullshit story, and that will still go on. The famous bullshit story that I was taught when I was a kid, which, America was great. We had a little Indian problem. We brushed them out of the way. Yeah, we had slaves, but it's no big deal. And then the Japs attacked, and we had to drop the atomic bomb. Well, I had no choice about it, and now everything's fine. Which is even worse than the critical race theory, because at one point the countries going to have to go, seriously, if we're going to continue into the future and be progressive humans, we're going to have to address some of that stuff that they addressed in the critical race theory. It's not about teaching people to hate their country, but teaching people to look at history for what it is, not for what was given you.
Teaching the real history and let people have the information, as opposed to try to swing it one way or the other.
And it's weird. It's like the information is all around us. It's been available for years, but people just choose. They like the story. Americans love the story. They don't love reality. They love movies.
Well, that's why there's a huge Christian population.
Yeah, exactly. It's why there's a huge Christian population, and who would, turn on a dime for whoever would represent them. And they live in fantasy land, And now we're talking, since my generation, and I was there about, probably about 15 years after the TV generation really started. So it was early. And I've seen nothing but an advancement of that. Well, no, there's been hits in the 70s. They tried, to fight back against that. But overall, money wins, fantasy wins. People want to think good things about themselves. It used to be all Americans wanted to think the same good things about themselves, but now it's starting to fragment, and they just want to fight all the time within themselves, which will be the downfall of everybody when you fight amongst yourselves. But there's got to be some way that information, the history that we're talking about, that's been available since the early 70s. It was never any surprise to me as soon as I got out of high school when I learned about the real history of America, and I was like, oh, well, yeah, I thought that was a little bit too pat. I thought that was a little bit too easy. But I knew, even as a kid, as a cynical kid, that most people weren't going to want to believe that. And the people that were treated on the shit end of the stick were never going to let it go. So that's basically where you got now. You got people who were on the shit end of history going, look, man, not for nothing, but you at least admit it. They won't.
No.
They'll if you look at the Tucker Carlsons and people of this world, they're trying to take it back to 1950 style, where everything's fine. That's like, dude, you're going to get so fucking killed in the future, because the future is right behind you. And the future does not include guys like you. No,
it does not.
This is like those old guys' last stand. You could tell they're scared. And they're overly afraid because they're so fucking guilty of their own bullshit. They think it's going to be like Hip Hop Nation. In their mind, their terror is just like fucking crazy homeboys, like, burning down their house and making love to their children. Because they spent their whole life, going, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you reap what you sow, motherfucker. And I'm just so glad I grew up in a world of music where it proves that people work together all the time, regardless. Regardless of institutionalized racism. When people get to a certain age, you start to forget that, or not forget it, but you put it aside because you work together, because you're all from the same goddamn country. It's like, there's not enough time to hate. Just like whatever you grew up with, whatever bullshit that you learned from the old history, leave it aside and get on with it. And that's the music community always did that. So
100%.
And they just got exactly real about it. And that's what gets me about pisses me off about this time is that everyone is so idealistic on both sides. That once again, it's like, you guys are saying both on the left and the right that you care about society in such a way that no one else can care. You're both being unrealistic. It's just like, it really should be a time where somebody just comes in and goes, all you kids, shut the fuck up and do something. Make some art. Like, get off each other's backs. So if you got to tear down a couple statues, who cares? You know what I mean? General Lee and all that shit. Yeah, get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who cares? But weird times and getting weirder.
Yeah, it's definitely getting weirder. Do you address any of that in your music when you're writing? Like, do you get political or try to be at least metaphorical with lyrics or things like that?
Metaphorical all the time. I always have, like, I've never gone for strict politics because strict politics changes so much. And it's such a, I think it's illusory. My thing has always been to the stuff that I put in my music all the time is just the cosmic madness of growing up in a world that's, especially in America, where everything is the perception of it. The cosmic joke of advertising culture being the overwhelming winner, being used by politics, by, no matter what, at the top, the people at the top, they're there. We're here. They have nothing to do with us. You know what I mean? They're playing us as customers. It's not conspiracy theories. It's not trying to control the world through nanites in our bloodstream, through vaccines. It's just a simple thing. Buying and selling and having more than the other person. That's all it is. Sell them on it. They found a new way to sell now, which is to divide people, which used to be unthinkable. But now there are a lot of people that think they can do it. If they can get enough nuts involved, scare enough people, well, they could drive up the ratings on one station or another. So, pick your side, be it left or be it right, there's money to be made. MSNBC makes more money now that they copy Fox, except they're like the anti-Fox. It's like World Federation Wrestling.
Yeah, it's tribalism at its finest.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's tribalism that's really it's represented through these stations and stuff, but I don't think it's represented through the mainstream of the culture. I mean, if it did, then Trump would have won by overwhelming numbers. We're looking at a freak show that's partly built on people's perceptions of what's going on through a little screen, and it's like your average person in America that I see doesn't want to have anything to do with either one of those people, because it's too extreme. I think most people just want to be left alone, but when you start raising stuff like moral panic and these old political tricks, I mean, they used to use it after the war with communism, commies are everywhere. Be scared. Be an American. Commies are everywhere. It's like commies weren't everywhere.
Yeah.
They were in some places, but it wasn't like, they're coming out of the trees. Everything's exaggerated to the point where if somebody can capitalize on it, and our military capitalize on that. Now our media companies are capitalizing on basically having moral crisis. And a moral crisis is something that no one can ever really figure out. I mean, you can't. That's like asking the church to come in and like, well, those guys will make the right decision.
Yeah.
It really bugs me now. It's killing humor. It makes you afraid to tell jokes. It makes you afraid to one wrong move and you're on some political side that you never meant to be on in the first place.
Yeah, that's the scary part is when it affects art that is literally just art. It's not meant to, to do the things that people are making it out to do, right?
Yeah, art was the place where you could say stuff that people will go, oh, I don't want to hear that. I mean, I counted on it to do it. But now the politicians have go cross this line, especially the right. They've crossed a line where it's like, you can't be a badass musician. You can't be more insane or badass or punk rock than Donald Trump. You know what I mean? He's the ultimate punk rocker. He's like Johnny Rotten for president. Fuck yeah! You know, it's like, you've done it. He's the Johnny Rotten for old white people. No matter what you say, it's someone else's fault. Fuck them. Even though he was the president, he's like, fuck the president. You know?
You're not wrong.
Cuckoo. But people identify with that fuck youism. The good old American fuck youism that comes up only in a country that has never had it that bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If this was Europe, it wouldn't last because, you know why? Because their country was in fucking flames 80 years ago. They got bombed. They went through world wars over people like Donald Trump. They saw what the actual comeuppance was from full-on fascism and dreaming and all this bullshit. They had to pull their stuff together. They had to pull it together because they had been through 2 world wars in 1 century. Their countries got bombed, their women raped, destroyed. America never had that. We never had one bomb dropped on us from anybody else. We lived, hundreds of years being absolutely, never suffered. So how would these people know? They think it's their right to just go and fucking hate everybody and complain, I don't even think they consider it hate. I think they just consider it their right to complain. And of course, I have a right to complain. And yes, I have a right to believe in QAnon theories. And I'm sure that there's somebody out there plotting against me right now. And makes sense to me. And it's like, they're plotting for you to spend your money the way you're spending your money now. It's really, really simple. But when people start making their money off of other people hating each other, that's bizarre. And that's what I think is going on now. A lot of people banking who really don't mind this situation that much.
Yeah, it's the whole cancel culture thing is it's discerning when it's affecting art. It's upsetting, especially comedy.
It'll go away because, go ahead.
I'm trying to think of how much it would affect music, like the cancel culture thing, because I don't know if
cancel culture so far doesn't hurt humanity. I mean, they're not hurting; they're only hurting celebrities, So I mean, it's like, again, it's like another pussy move by a country that's never really been. If we were really dangerous, cancel culture you'd be canceling out normal people, but they can't do it. It's only their opinion versus a celebrity, and celebrities and people in music or any kind of celebrity or stuff. Part of the rules of their business is they make people happy. So if the crowd decides you're not making us happy, then you go down for whatever reason. It doesn't even have to be fair. So as far as I can see, cancel culture is not a real danger. It's just stupid.
Right. I agree.
If it's not hurting me, I'd have to go out on I'd literally have to go shoot a baby in the head, and I'd get canceled. But, just kidding, folks.
It's an interesting concept.
But you know what I mean? I really have to go out and talk some horrible sexist thing and threaten a puppy, that kind of thing. They
came after Trent Reznor and Marilyn Manson.
Well, they came after Marilyn Manson because Marilyn Manson was begging for it.
Right.
He was asking for it. When you set up the Nazi rape room in your house, you're going to get bad press.
That's true. That is
you know
true.
what I mean?
Yeah, there's a little more to the Marilyn Manson one than just a straight attack.
Well, the thing is, all right. So it's bad news for celebrities right now. It's bad news for celebrities with any kind of off-brand humor or anything that could be perceived as racist or misogynist or anything, which is always, I never have a problem with that. Racism, misogyny is not something that needs let's protect the racist, that's never been my thing. you protect the right to say it. But there's always been a kind of an unwritten contract in America that racism and misogyny and the stuff that's like dangerous to other people's lives and who they are as individuals is universally accepted as a bad thing. I mean, I don't know where that comes from. Maybe I was raised Catholic or something, but it just doesn't strike me as something to fight for. And it's unnecessarily mean. All right, if you make an art project out of it, that's one thing. You're discussing things. But if you put it in your life and go, yeah, I've got a Nazi rape room and I'm drugging women and fucking them, yeah, I think you go to jail for that.
Definitely.
You know, at least in my state. The thing in rock and what's weird about music and you know, people should be worried. I mean, rock is so small they're not even paying attention to it. You know, the best thing they can get at rock is some poor guy jerking off. You know, that poor fucking guy from what band? Megadeth.
Interesting.
Who, Mustaine?
No, the other guy, the bass player, who's got caught jerking off, and they had a film of him jerking off.
Oh fuck, I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah, to some like 19-year-old girl, and he's like 56. So they just ran him over the coals on like Blabbermouth and those places. You pig! And it's like, that's the best you can do. They got that, and they got Manson.
Yep.
And so what do they do to Trent Reznor? They give him Trent Reznor shit?
Yeah, I think it's a similar like mistreating ex-girlfriends or
Yeah.
I didn't look into it. I saw a meme that said consent Reznor, and it was like a picture of him asking a girl if he could please fuck her like an animal.
Right. It's never, you know, with that kind of stuff with the internet, I don't even know how that far. I mean, I think it's going to be weird for the rest of our lives. I mean, there's certain aspects of rock and roll and just basic living, edgy living, say, non-religious living, like say, let's a little bit on the moral. I mean, everybody's got their own morals, so what are you going to say? But meaning anything that's going to go over into dicey territory, as long as the internet is around, it's going to be fodder for opinion.
Yeah.
It used to be when media was slower, you could actually bank on that. You could actually get a bad reputation and come out on top. Like, oh, he's such a bad boy. That's great, you know, or it brought a lot of eyeballs to you. They couldn't really cancel it. They could, there'd be enough public blowback. So maybe promoters wouldn't hire the person, or the TV show wouldn't put them on, or Johnny Carson won't put you on. I think that's all that's going on now. I mean, the worst they can do, the cancel culture can do, is just talk shit about you, but they can't make you do anything. I think there's going to be, it's really up to the TV stations, the people and record companies.
Yeah.
If they want to be brave about it, they'll keep them on their label. If they want to be pussies about it, they'll drop them. You know, it's like, or not pussy. If they just, it's how they want it. It's their business and they want to show themselves. I think personally, I think the less said about it, the better, because I haven't seen anybody. With the Manson is a great story. You know, that's a great story. I mean, it's fucking amazing because he wanted that to happen. I mean, this guy asked for it. I know Manson. You know, at least I knew him at one point, at least peripherally. And,
yeah, you guys toured with him, didn't you?
Yeah. It was always cool, and Twiggy, like, awesome. But you could tell that he wanted to do this. I want to be the king of the bad guys. You know, it's like the hip hop guys, the same thing. I want to be, this is what I want. How much can I get away with? How much bad behavior can I get with? I'll push it and push it and push it. Well, it gets to a point, and it's one of those things when you're young and you're 20 and you don't have it yet, everyone cheers you to do it. But as soon as you get old enough to do it, you just look like an old creep.
And that's another interesting point about that too, is you kind of reminded me with like the hip hop culture is the the culture in hip hop now is like what rock and roll used to be, whereas like the badass is celebrated, like the edgier, the crazier shit
Yeah.
you've done is
Well, kids-
celebrated, and it's not so much in rock anymore. It's the culture's shifted where it's okay there and it's not okay in rock.
Well, it's not okay in rock because there's no young people in rock.
But I mean, even
they're
like,
a bunch of 30, when the girls started like 30, there's hardly any girls. They don't know about it. It's a bunch of fucking dudes. Hip hop's got girls, and blah, blah, blah. And it's young people and they want edgy. I still think all the kids want edgy. At one point, there's going to be a big blowback against this whole cancer culture. You watch. Within 10 years, it'll be a fucking steady stream of the most outrageous fucking over the top shit you'll ever, and it won't be able to stop it, because as soon as you try to stop something, people just push more, and the hip hop thing, believe me, I saw that happen in the 90s when I was starting Magnet, and I decided to turn up the volume on Magnet from not just psychedelic to rock. And I was like, man, the rock bands I'm playing with aren't owning it. It was like the set piece and the biggest example to the rock world when I was doing Magnet back 2 albums in was Nirvana. And Nirvana's main message, whether they knew it or not, was like, guess what? Making it isn't worth it. I'm gonna shoot myself in the head. Fuck it. I made it all the way. This isn't good. I'm just a little white boy from a trailer park. Fuck it. I can't take it. I'm going to blow myself in it. He wore a shirt that said loser. Most of the rock bands and the grunge bands were trying to play down stereotypes, rock and roll stereotypes. None of this hair band stuff. We're not going to be like Motley Crue. Fuck all that. Fuck this Led Zeppelin shit. Fuck all that. We're going to play it down. We're going to be real. And guess what? Kids don't want real. And that's why the hip hop guys did so well. They're like, what do you mean real? I want to fucking get out of the neighborhood and fucking buy cars. They had more to do with the psyche of your average American kid than the grunge bands did. They represented everything that your average American consumer wanted, and had little to do with race. Although I think it had to do with their situation, because all those guys grew up really, really poor. The hip hop guys grew up mainly in inner city poor, and they were like, man, fuck you. I'm not ashamed of wanting 3 Cadillacs and 1 million girls. Of course, that's the great American dream. So, and they set that example to millions and millions of kids. And I think that's why hip hop worked. That's why it took over as the new rock. Because it really did.
I would agree, because it's more of that same attitude that rock used to have and used to swing.
Yeah, I'm young. Fuck it. You all you guys made up these rules. I'm going to disobey every one of those rules. Like the hip hop guys were like, oh, what the rules are? You have to get signed by a lawyer and get together with 5 other guys and work out songs. Fuck that. I got a turntable and my voice, and I'm going to have 1 million girls, and I'm going to make videos. And I'm going to blow all you guys away. It was total rock and roll attitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then things got weird, because the rock bands tried to do it. They did nu metal.
Oh.
And that was their idea of like, oh, we'll add some hip hop into it. That didn't work out that well.
Gross.
So one of the original names of Magnet was Triple Bad Acid. And I wanted to ask about like that name and what was the effect, like what was the influence of maybe drug culture on the band in the early days?
Huge. I mean, all my, like I said, I wanted to make a band. I wanted to be in a band and write songs for a band that would have been my favorite band at, say, age 16. So, and so I did Magnet in my late 20s and early 30s. So I wasn't that far away from being a kid. And I remembered, and I went back, it's like, what would be my favorite band? And funny, it wasn't punk rock, not the band I was in, but it was the stuff that I saw as a kid. So it was all bong culture, like blacklight posters, biker movies, Russ Meyer's movies, B culture, 60s and early 70s, insane acid culture. If you look at that stuff and the writings from the time, authors like Tom Wolfe and Hunter S. Thompson, especially Hunter S. Thompson's brilliant fucking writer. It was all about not quite anarchy, but just insanity for insanity's sake, like irresponsibility, deifying everything, and really heavily sexual too. Like, and while you're having this religious experience on drugs, you'll also get laid a lot. You know, it's just all this stuff that doesn't fit together, yet it did because it was the 60s. That's what I wanted. So I would bring all my memories into that, the stuff that I loved when I was a little kid and people that I knew I grew up with, like these muscle car kids that I went to school with who drive around in like souped up Camaros and fucking, we would do, you know, like giant industrial strength cans of Whippet, you know, of a hospital, like of Whippets in cars, tripping and driving fast, you know, taking LSD, driving fast, going to Hawkwind shows, playing army in the woods like Apocalypse Now, like with camouflage paint, and having sex with our girlfriends like tied to trees, you know, in the woods just because it was fun. Nobody got hurt. They loved it. Like,
that's all.
We're gonna have a game, and the game was, we're gonna chase you girls through the woods with, and they're like, yeah, this is great, you know. And so we're tripping and having sex and just pretty much
badassery.
What can I say? I'm from New Jersey. It's like, you know, you get these weird ideas in your head on what's cool and what's fun. It was all like a big game, like playing of a game, and everybody would role play these games. And it's weird because the people I hung around with, not dangerous people. We were all musicians and stuff. We all lived in our heads. You know, it wasn't like we had real guns or any of that shit. We weren't farmers. We weren't anything. We were just the suburban kids fueled by all these images that we grew up in, all these sounds. Zeppelin, Sabbath, Stooges, Hawkwind. That was the soundtrack. And for the movie, it was Russ Meyer's movies, big boobs, fast cars, like to say the biker movies, science fiction movies like 2001, you know, and just all this stuff just seemed to go well together. To me, anyway, it just seemed like my perfect
like a
world.
whole aesthetic. That is.
So yeah, the band was based on that, and I brought lyrically into all of that. All the lyrics were constantly, whether I was talking about something else or not. All the lyrics were very personal. They're actually stories about me and my life, but I figured if I wrote them straight out, and honestly, straight out as a declaration, this is what happened, they'd be boring. So I used metaphors constantly. And I would blow up my normal things in my life. Like if I broke up with my girlfriend, I would explain that in the song as the earth splitting in two. The earth split in two today. That's one statement. Boom. And fuck you if you can't understand that's just because I broke up with my girlfriend. It's a lot more interesting to think that the guy is writing the fucking earth split open. That's a lot more interesting than a guy breaking up with his girlfriend. And on it went. And I started putting all these 70s, all my favorite references to movies and scenes and stuff like that. It became kind of an erstwhile method of poetry, really. You know, I don't know if it's good poetry, but it's not your typical lyrical, you know, way to go. I didn't mind being ambiguous about it either. I wanted people to listen to the lyrics and go, well, either that guy's fucking out of his mind or it's some sort of genius poetry, you know. Never let them know exactly what's going on.
Right. So like that's a great description of your relationship with drugs in the early days. Now, I know you've been very open about your overdose in 2006 on prescription
medication. Yeah, and that
medication.
was a totally different thing. That was the unfun drug. Yeah, that was the worst fucking part of my life because I really blew it. You know, after all these years of having such a great time, and I just kept working harder. I turned into this guy that's working behind the 8 ball, you know, trying to keep my band alive and trying to tour in many places in the world and still get a good sleep. So It wasn't even, hey, let's get high. It was just like, I need to go to sleep so I can do the show.
Right.
So I wish I could say, yeah, I overdosed in bed with like, having a good time. And like, no, this was just like, I got to see the doctor to get my pills because I can't sleep and I can't sing if unless I don't sleep. Got caught in another a well-known story of American pharmaceutical abuse.
Right.
Luckily for me, it didn't last long.
Right.
But it fucked me up. It took me out of the game for about 2 years, I think.
How has that affected your relationship with drugs since then, with music and with your personal life and with everything?
Not in my personal life and everything, probably a lot better since it's over. But music was never something that I never wrote when I was high. And it's interesting, like the whole beginning of Monster Magnet, the whole time I was completely straight that whole time. I had just gotten bored with drugs. I'd gotten bored with drugs by the time I was about 24, and drinking too. I was over it. I was just like, oh, I've done this so many times. I did so much acid. I drank so much. I'm a complete fucking maniac. That I just enjoyed being straight. It was like the new high to me. Like straight is the new high. And so all that Monster Magnet stuff I wrote, and still I've never written a Monster Magnet song high. It's always coffee and late nights and stuff. And I'll write in terms of being high. It's not like I can't remember.
Right.
It's like, I know exactly. In fact, I think probably now if I leaned on my liver hard enough, or my pancreas and squeezed, I'd probably get some residual LSD from like 1974. It was more important for me to be in control of the situation. So I could represent, represent the experience correctly. And since the drug thing, I OD'd on the prescription drugs. That was just actually like a restart in a lot of ways to my life. I started reading more, and I just got to like enjoy life again. Because for a couple of years there in Magna, I was just going. I mean, we would tour from, you've heard these stories. It's the same old story with rock bands. It's like, oh, we're playing Australia now, and then we're going to fly to Europe, then we're going to fly to America. It's like, there's no time to sleep. And you get crazy in the head. And there is, and there's never enough money, because everything costs so much money. So you get caught. I was basically caught like a businessman. Like, well, how big do you want to be? It's like, it's not Metallica big. It's like, what do you want to do with this band? Are you going to keep knocking at the door and try to take over the world and take drugs so you can do that? Or are you just going to stop and like figure it out? Of course, I did it, the good old American way, which is, oops, too many pills. Next thing you know, I wind up in a hospital. It's like, I think I just made up my mind for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good since it's like, I don't do drugs, but I didn't really want to anyway, before that, or drink and stuff. Believe me, I'm crazy enough without it. It's like, you don't want to see me drunk or high. I'm like the person that would like sit on the ground with a bag of plastic army men and plastic dinosaurs and play, look, the dinosaur's eating the army guy. Okay, dude. It's not like seeing a fucking, 63-year-old man on the ground playing with plastic dinosaurs. It's not good.
I had a question sent in from a good friend of mine, John McAdam. He wanted to know if there's such thing as too many groupies.
Yes. Unbelievable as it may seem.
Interesting.
Well, it's a quality thing.
Aha. That's a good explanation.
Well, you want, everybody you want real passion in your life, and as soon as something's free, it's like, it's too easy. There's got to be something else to it. In the beginning, I would say it all depends on the level. Like, if your friend is new at starting out to this, I would say no. I'd say the first 5 years there is no such thing as two. and then like check back after the next couple of years to see what everything. But you know, be careful what you wish for, because when it does come true, you're like, holy shit. You know, I mean, I was a nerdy, really nerd kid and really shy, you know, so I didn't do good with girls when I was in high school. I was just, you know, I needed to change my personality, like reinvent it in some way where I could represent outside of myself, like this fictional character. Or not quite like Alice Cooper, but basically change my way of to bring out certain aspects of my personality that I'd be embarrassed to do in real life on stage. And that whole rock and roll rebirth thing. And it worked, but along with that comes all this stuff that you never expected before. And some of that's like, attention, you know, attention from other people. And it could be from women, you know. And then you're like, God bless rock and roll. This is fucking great. Until you get to the point where it's like, what am I, Motley Crue? You know? But everyone's got, I guess everyone's got their own balance point. I always look for more real passion, less groupies, more real passion. But it can be found in both, I must say.
Awesome. So the tour, hopefully North America, probably not till 2022, you're thinking?
Yeah.
Will that
it's not
include,
that far away.
will that include much Canadian dates?
I sure hope so. I love playing Canada. Canada's the best, man. Canada's like, people still remember how to rock there. And it's I always had such a great time in Canada. I've made records there. Got absolutely no problem with Canada. I must move there in the last 4 years. It was this close.
I'm on the East Coast. I'm here in New Brunswick, and Ryan's he's in Calgary, Alberta most of the time. But anything East Coast, I would love to meet up and check that out. It'd be so awesome.
I know we'll be in Toronto. You know, I mean, you can't not play Toronto. You know, so, yeah, I always had I had crazy times in Canada too, man. It's
like what? Give us a story. Give us a Canadian tour story. Nothing? You can't give us nothing?
It canceled me. Cancel. It's like I said, it's like, that's another thing about being in a rock band for, like, you know, in my mind, I've been in a rock band too long. Like, if I can't believe I'm doing this stuff and still really liking it after all these years. If my 14-year-old self would kick my 64-year-old self out of the room, going like, what's that fucking old dude doing here? Get the fuck out. But I ain't going away because it's just too much fun. It's you know, it's really rock. But talking about it and the intricacies of some of the let's say more superficial enjoyment of the rock industry, if you know what I can mean, gentlemen.
I got you.
Doesn't sound good coming from an old guy. It just looks like some crazy old guy. If I was 30, yeah, I'd be telling you all the stories. But now it'd be just like, did you see the guy from Boston? That old creep. These days, you know. But man, it's like Canada. Yeah, that's what people don't realize about Canada. Down here, Canada has this, you know, this big reputation of like everybody's friendly and everyone's like really cool and goofy and stuff. It's like they don't fucking have no idea, you know.
No.
Like,
some
of the craziest shit I've ever seen going on in my life has been in Canada.
I would agree with that too.
Yeah. Just because you guys got a better PR, you know, you got good PR.
That's definitely it. It is the PR of Canada.
It is.
For sure.
Yeah. We put out
the faces going on. Yeah, everybody puts up a good front. Oh, how you doing? So then they get back to it, and it's like, Jesus Christ.
Well, maybe we can make some of that crazy behind the scenes happen when you come to the East Coast.
There's nothing like it, man. You know, rock and roll is. I really sound like an oven. That old style, which is going away now, which it doesn't mean it has to go away forever. I think people, whatever music we're talking about, people reinvent it. There's always somebody, some shy soul that reinvents themselves through some sort of their art or their entertainment or whatever. And then to get to live a life that's more extreme than they ever thought they could because of the way they represent themselves through their art or whatever. That's never going to go away. But I could say in the rock and roll way, which was being artistic and basically a good person, but morally on the edge, meaning adventurous. Now, why should I bring morals into this? Adventurous in your youth and your sexuality, as far as, you know, it was the best. It's fucking awesome. I never would have had that kind of good time. Like the adventures you have, it's like all through, not because I beat somebody to do it, but because I basically got involved in something where everyone was like, all right, this is what we should do. You know, a truly, you know, a true, it was like a hedonistic party there for a while.
Yeah.
Where all the players were in on it, male and female. You know what I mean? Like it was all, you know, consent. This is what happens. This is what happens in this situation. Let's all live the stereotype. And that's all I could ever ask for. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, there's no crying. There's no, you know, none of these stories, none of these like Manson stories of people suing and crying. And, you know, it was all like,
it was all good.
Yeah, just like what you'd want it to be.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. Well, you've been extremely generous with your time, and this has been an honor.
No problem, dude. Nice to talk.
Yeah, definitely.
So cool.
Me too.
I hope I see you out there next year.
I hope so too. I really do. Final thoughts. Send us off, Dave.
Oh shit. What should my final thought? I don't have any final thoughts. Oh yeah, just sit in your kitchen right now, wherever you are, and don't move until Monster Manic plays your town. Just keep pouring the coffee. Oh no, you can go to work, make money, and then be at the ready.
Perfect.
Because I need to sell t-shirts.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Rock on, dudes.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers.
Take it easy.
Hey guys, if you're still here listening and you haven't done so already, you might as well take a minute and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All these links can be found at livingthedream506.com. Thank you for your support and keep dreaming.